Hello and welcome to this general's address of Wasabi Wallet. Today, Rafe and I will be talking a bit about the future of the company and especially the software project of where we would like to envision it. This is mainly to get something of a rough consensus on the vision of what we want to build and why, and who our kind of target audience or user base is. And yeah, so I will go on a rant and start rambling a bit. Then Rafe will fill in all the stuff that I missed, and then we can have some Q&A session afterwards. And I think to start out with, the general vision of Wasabi as a software project, in my opinion, is that we want to have a flagship software wallet that provides effortless privacy by default with the help of our coordination service. And we want that by default, a lot of the complex decisions are automated and a lot of the nuances are hidden from view. We kind of want it to be a black box to a large extent. And I think we've done a great success on this in the 2.0 release. That's very well done. However, what we've been thinking about for a while now and where we're now getting some user feedback as well is that the full black box mode does not satisfy all edge cases. Like there's a lot of scenarios where our current CoinJoin robot and the black box is just not sufficient enough to really take care of everything. And for this, there's basically two different aspects, right? And our priority should always be, I think, to improve the black box, to make the default better, to make the default more user-friendly, more intuitive, more abstracted. I think that's the core of what we want to do with Wasabi, right? The privacy by default, without you having to, or the user having to worry about it. However, I do believe that I think all users, and not just power users or advanced users, I think even for noobs, there are many scenarios in their lifetime of using the wallet where they want to see additional information. So you want to get insight, of what's actively going on or what happened in the past. And in some cases, even more, you want to get control over what does the wallet do. And these are two different aspects that kind of break out of the black box concept and model. Right? By default, we want to hide more information rather than showing all the nuances. By default, we want to automate all the decisions rather than handing off the control to the user. And again, that's great for the default, but I don't think we can have a holistic wallet without giving this insight and control to the user in some cases. And the big question is now how to do this. First of all, I do believe it should be in Wasabi. Wasabi for me is the flagship product of ZK Snacks, the one that should be able to do basically everything, a very feature-rich implementation of what could be possible with the software. And we're already working with other wallet projects to integrate Wasabi into their stuff, and there's hopefully going to be even more new projects coming up. And I would love to see a kind of black box only Wasabi edition, kind of like a Wasabi Lite, where there's literally only an option for having the black box. There is no way to take the insight or to take control. That it's really grammar proof. There is no button that could shoot you in the foot. A very restricted piece of software. I think that's a cool idea, but I think it's a cool idea for an additional project that we offer. And I don't think it's the good idea for Wasabi. as I personally see Wasabi as this flagship that should have the power to do it all. Yeah, and what does that mean specifically? Well, for one, let's make auto coin join better and the auto black box wallet experience. Things like Adam recently added that don't consolidate red coins and stuff like this. New features like, for example, the freeze coins from auto coin join. These things are ways where we can make the black box more fitting for a larger number of users. And I think that's a good thing because we want to make the default as commonly used as possible. Again, I don't want Wasabi to downgrade or to degrade into this power user only experience. The default should remain simple, and it should be even more simple than it is now. But then on the other side, increase the insight. And so on the transaction preview screen, actually show what's going on, maybe what pockets are on the input and output side, or then what's the UTXO visualization, of what's actually on the inputs and on the outputs. Same for transaction history, especially with coin joins. How did this coin join look? More information about the privacy gains that this coin join had. And also things like manual coin selection for single user payments, so non-coin joins, potentially even coin selection for the coin join itself. I think these are all quite important features that need to be there. And yeah, we can make it work. But again, they should be designed in a way that they do not make the default more confusing. And this is kind of a UI challenge. But in general, I see this so we have this easy default everywhere in the wallet experience, but at basically any step, there is somewhat like a button that allows you to zoom in or to drop down some additional information and control options. This way you basically have different ways of achieving your problems. But again, the auto coin join mode, the black box mode, should be so good that it's the preferred way for basically everyone for the vast majority of time. And these more classical insight and control options should really be the fallback for edge cases that we can't really anticipate. But ultimately, we should strive to make the default as good as possible. And maybe then in the future, we can actually have this black box only version where it just works for everyone or basically everyone by default in the background without any of the additional fancy things. And I guess that's basically the overall vision for what to do or for where I want to see the wallet go. And how to get there is, I think, in the next couple months to kind of have a refactoring, cleanup, maintenance break, so to say, where we make sure that everything we have now is good and clean and works. And then later we can get into the more interesting new features. And Adam did a lot of good work on curating them. I'm not going to go over them in this rant, but maybe it's a point for later in this conversation. Yeah, I guess that's basically good enough to start with. Rafe, did I miss anything?
Not really. Just overall, maybe like about the ethos. I mean, many of you were already here, for example, when Andy got into the company and, when we started the whole 2.0 project and everything. It has been windy. And currently, we achieved one of the very big goals that we had, creating a user-friendly, newbie-friendly wallet. I think what we currently have is already pretty good for that. It can be improved, but it's pretty good for that. Previously, with 1.0, it wasn't user friendly, and our user base was mainly these so-called advanced users. What we currently have with 2.0 doesn't really necessarily meet their standards, not necessarily for the functions, but because it's a black box, they want to be able to verify things a little bit better. They want to do some weird ass things, and yeah, like what Max said, Wasabi should enable people to do these kind of like weird edge cases and like new features. And like Wasabi should be like the flagship of the company, but also like a representation of what Bitcoin is capable of, what a wallet can be like for people. So now basically what we want to try to do is to switch a little bit more of the focus on that advanced side, and to try to also make the wallet as good as possible for these advanced users.
Yes, and even these quote-unquote advanced features should be intuitive to use and easy to understand and beautiful to look at. Just because they're quote-unquote advanced features doesn't mean that they should be complex just for the sake of complexity. We should still have the great UX as a basis everywhere, and that's a challenge, but we can manage it.
Yeah, and overall, like there's a lot of these cool new things and features that grandmas and maybe newbie users don't even know about or care about. But it would be sad if Wasabi would only focus on these newbie users that don't implement any of these like new advanced things. Like we should enable people to also try out and be reckless.
And again, even a advanced power user will want to have a good UX for his default payments. You just sometimes want to have more control and insight over what's going on. But he wants great UX in any case. And grandma, of course, also wants to have great UX. And maybe sometimes she wants to look at what's going on under the hood and learn from that and become a more knowledgeable Bitcoiner. I think Wasabi can be a kind of tool of education as well. I don't think that's the main goal of it. I think the UX should be so great that it doesn't need much education. But well, Bitcoin is bloody complex, and the wallet can, I think, help to some extent educate the user so that he makes better privacy decisions overall. Yeah, but I think
overall,
time.
Yeah, Max, do you want to talk about like overall ethos and these kind of things already?
Yeah, just to be clear, like this is a cypherpunk company and project. We believe in the sovereignty of the individual and of his right to property. The person can own a computer and use that to compute a private key and signatures and stuff like that. And we want to enable users to be sovereign, right, to have control over their own money so that nobody can steal it. And this is also, but we're also entrepreneurs, right? We want to provide a very useful service to other people so that they give us their magical cyberspace money because we want to earn more sats and get rich. But we want to do that in a way that adheres to our principles of individual sovereignty, and especially the power to selectively reveal yourself to the world, and the concept that whenever whenever a user works with a service provider, the user should reveal as little information as is absolutely possible or reasonable. So this basically means that some information will always have to be revealed to the service. In our specific example, which input do you want to register? And that has to be told to the coordinator in clear text. But any additional sensitive information, like which collection of inputs are you registering, that is something that we don't want to learn. And we're designing protocols and software architectures so that we cannot have this information. And therefore, we cannot betray the user. and his trust in us. So yeah, this means we build software where the user cannot be stolen from and the user cannot be spied upon. And that includes not just other people, but especially us. And yeah, I mean, on top of that, or I guess the underlying core of this all is voluntarism, and the idea that people should collaborate peacefully and with consent. And that doesn't just go with things like consentfully spending your Bitcoin, but it also includes how we collaborate on working on this project. I mean, Wasabi always has been, always will be free and open source. So that includes your right to, on your own computer, change the code and read the code. It's just speech. We don't own it. We just articulated it. And yeah, so nobody can stop you from changing the code, from then hopefully making a pull request and telling you about the changes if they actually were useful, so that not just you can benefit from the better software, but everyone else as well. So even though it's not mandatory, but if you make some useful changes to the code, tell us about it, make PRs, let's discuss it, let's make it even better, and then let's ship it so that it reaches a large number of users. And you know, even though now me being CEO of the company, I really don't want to have a whip that I use to force you of doing the stuff and the crazy feature ideas that I want. I really don't want to have a bunch of order followers in the project. That's not healthy at all. I want to work with dedicated individuals who see the magnitude of the problem that we're working on and who are motivated enough to really solve it and dedicate their life to it, basically. And once you have that motivation, then, well, I don't need a whip to get you to work. I know you will work on it because you understand that this is the biggest problem that you could possibly work on in your lifetime. And I think once we share this mindset, we will really excel in building something beautiful and delightful. It's not going to be easy because anarchy is a bit messy, and it's not efficient in the sense of we will try many different things and not all of them will work. And unfortunately, sometimes you will work on things that will end up not succeeding and not making it into master branch. But well, that just means that you're not yet good enough, or your idea wasn't yet good enough, and it can be even better. And yes, that's harsh, but that's also very encouraging because, yeah, there's a lot of things that we can make better. On the other hand, of course, let's not get that in the way of being, imperfect, being the enemy of good enough. Even if we ship code that's not as good as it could be, it's already better than it was in the past, and that means users can be positively affected. So yeah, let's ship good code that actually works and that solves problems for users, and let's combine that with our business model of well, basically, our users save on block space because of us as a coordinator. They get more privacy for less block space, and we get a small cut of their savings of mining fees. That's basically why they pay us, and it's a super valuable service. And yeah, we're on a good track.
I mean, like, just to be clear, many people probably are not even familiar with cyberpunks. Well, first thing to do, go ahead and read about them. What do they do? Yeah, and everything about their history. This company, when I started contributing to this, it was really, like small, not many people, and it was really like cyberpunk focused. I remember when I started following the Wasabi Wallet Twitter account, it was only posting like interesting stuff, something about the software, something about, about Bitcoin privacy in general, something interesting, but always something like cyberpunk stuff, nothing extra. That changed previously. Mostly like this is now for marketing stuff, but in overall like ethos, we kind of like focus, like switched our whole like target group from those like advanced users and cyberpunks to like majority of people, like the newbies. And the idea behind it is like comes from these like cyberpunk writings. It's come from like uh, this text of like about like privacy. Having good privacy tools is not really enough if only advanced users use them. There's only few of these advanced users, so they will always be the minority. So the idea for this like creating a newbie friendly software came from that. We have to have a good privacy software that the majority can use. But like everything else, in my opinion, should like pretty much go a little bit more back to that old cyberpunk ways and those days. So rather than posting, like, for example, content, like instead of quantity, we should focus on quality. We should really set like really high standards for ourselves and, you know, make sure that the whole team is really proud of what we're doing. And yeah, like overall, like read about, like, that's the thing. It's just a matter of perspective to see also like what are we doing over here? What is Wasabi Wallet? What is Bitcoin? You can, like, there's many ways to see it. One way to see it is that we are on a really like a path to an Orwellian surveillance society with all these CBDCs and other like bullshit things, like all these whatever wax passports or whatever, like debit cards or credit cards that have some kind of like credit card, like carbon credit score things or whatever. Like it's gonna be a mess. It's Orwellian craziness. We are on the front line trying to fight that system. Like I don't really honestly know any other option to prevent that craziness to happening other than Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has this severe problem that its privacy is really in a bad shape. And we are on the front line of fixing that. There's only few projects working on it, and we're the biggest one. So, like, that's the magnitude of what we're doing.
Yes, and one important final point is that, especially because this is such a huge problem, we uh, and because we want to have the people working on the project being the highest quality that they could be, education is crucial in all parts. And I really want to make this a priority of the project's culture, I guess. Always take time to educate yourself and to learn and to discover new areas and to challenge yourself like this in basically all parts. Because, you know, for basically all that we're doing, we have no clue of what we're doing. We're not the, you know, the experts with all the theoretical degrees. We just get it done, you know, and that involves a lot of, yeah, on the self-education and research. And yeah, this is one of the things that I think you should be motivated to do that. Like see this really as a once in a lifetime opportunity to become very knowledgeable and skilled in a certain area that is going to be quite replicable across different areas of your life in the future. Um, and just try to get better at all of these things that we do, and consider that as part of your work and your mission. And if it takes you a couple hours, you know, to read through, I don't know, Bitcoin articles or books related on the topic, or making some research in whatever area, that's good. Like we want you to get better, and yeah, self-education is a big part in this. Yeah, but I think it's probably time for some feedback from your side. We've been rambling on for quite some time. So what are your thoughts? What are your questions?
I have no questions. It's clear. However, I had one nuance. It's not important at all, but I think the content creation on Twitter it was a good direction. So I would say, in addition to that, having some technical content or some serious, or having a different, let's say, keyword or a sub, something that to serve the masses as well with the very good memes and this kind of stuff, and sometimes get out that like crypto for advanced or power user section, and then come out with a blog for power users. So having two kind of tags on the content, but with everything else, I'm okay with, and I think it's necessary to serve the power users as well on some kind of degree, but still keeping the default features on the basic users. But this is basically what you have said. So that's it.
Yeah, and in terms of messaging, you know, it's great to have accessible memes that will reach a wider audience, and I have absolutely nothing against that. But there, you know, there is difference in quality here, and there's difference kind of in the underlying ethos, and I think we can reach, or we can create very broadly accessible memes that still represent our base culture and ethos. And that's just something that I would like to focus on. Like, again, everything that we talked about now in this call, I really consider as foundational to CK Snacks as a company. This mindset, this approach, basically. And as long as any public content is somewhat in line with this, then regardless of how it's in the nuances, basically, I'm happy with it. But yeah, in general, just be truthful, be humble, and yeah, tell things how they are and make it fun. I guess that's as good as a general advice that I can give.
Yeah, and I have to also say, like, I have nothing against like trying to educate users and helping out like newcomers and creating content for them. Maybe just the idea, it's not really like about focusing on to newcomers. That's a good thing that we should like keep doing that too. But maybe what I said, like, you know, previously it seemed like we have like it become more of a priority to produce quantity, like big amount of stuff rather than actually good quality stuff. And that's something that I would really want to flip around the other way. So kind of like, at least for what I've seen, like this is related more of like the marketing and other stuff, not really like recent, but older stuff, more or less. But you know, like this force pushing. Like for example, to me it seems like it creates much more problems to set some kind of a hard limit that we have to produce one article per week than it actually brings like benefits. It's just like people wandering around, like worrying about like what should they talk about, and they end up talking about something that doesn't really matter and they are not happy or confident with, and that we shouldn't probably even use any time for. So kind of like, you know, let's try to rather not force push these things, but yeah, produce like quality. Like for example, not some kind of set limit that we have to achieve of Twitter posts per week or something, but quality.
Yes, I get it. I didn't know there is a quota there.
I mean, that's the thing. This is now old stuff. Like I don't. That's like I think Andy back in the days said all these kind of things, and currently already people have been starting to drop these out. But yeah. There used to be these quotas. Hopefully there's not anymore.
One kind of tangent example on this is Bitcoin Optech newsletter. Again, very technical outlet, but what I love about this newsletter is, so they publish it every week, but if there is a week where basically nothing is happening, then the newsletter is just short. You know, instead of bloating it with some bullshit, they just keep it very short, you know, 2 paragraphs, and that's it. And that's an awesome mindset. You know, if there's nothing to talk about, that then, well, don't bullshit around and come up with some blabber just to fill up the time. You know, stick to what's important and meaningful. Any other questions, feedback? What's up, Jumar?
Hey guys, so regarding the feature set, do we have are we going to have any strict guidelines regarding preventing a feature creep, for example, because that has been a problem in 1.0?
Yes, very, very good question. So for one, in the short term, in the next couple months, I think it would be better for us to stick with the obvious, non-controversial cleanup and maintenance things, just to pay all the tech debt, I think. And then for afterwards, I think we should ensure that we have no feature creep in the default UX. Or in other words, that the features that we add in the new UX should be to remove clutter and to remove complexities. Like the default should get easier and easier with time. That's the new features that we add there. That's the priority for the default quote unquote black box mode. But then on the opt-in insight and control aspects, well, yes, that's where we do want to see interesting insights and meaningful controls, and that is new features added. I would just want to highlight that hopefully those two don't conflict. Hopefully we can manage this in the UI so that it's not all these more advanced insight and control features are not too distracting for the default user. Maybe hidden behind a drop-down menu or some extra button or whatnot. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Again, like I don't want to add all those features for just for the sake of adding the features, and I don't want to overturn our idea of having a default or like a great UX. Instead, I want to double down on that, right? I want to make the default UX even more simple as it is currently. However, I think that can only work if we allow for the opt-in insight and control that will give reassurance to the users that the black box is actually doing a good job, which I think is essential, especially at the beginning. Because also, quite frankly, we don't know if our black box auto coin join robot stuff actually works well. You know, there's a lot of edge cases where it could really not be great. And we as developers won't even know that until we have more insight in the software itself. And this again kind of honkers back to the free software principle of scratch your own itch. I want us to all use Wasabi and love Wasabi, and all of us being users and then actually experiencing the pain points and the problems that the software has. That is, I think, going to be a great help for prioritizing on what needs to be done to make the software greater. But again, I think that kind of happened in 1.0 that this mindset led to a lot of feature creep, which was especially difficult because it turned into a very cluttered UX with everything in one place. well, with the 2.0 UI architecture is much better in this, and we can have, dialogues and pop-ups that are much more segregated. And I think now we can achieve the best of both worlds. We can have this default mode that's super trivial to use, and at any point we can somehow zoom in for that insight and control.
Yeah, I mean, Max said it pretty well at some point. Like, we should have a wallet that is like easy by default, opt-in, insights, and control. Like, I think that would be pretty great.
Cool, the release is out,
Nice.
by the way. Any more questions, feedback, insights?
What do you mean it's out?
Published on GitHub, and it's ready to download and stuff. I just need to deploy the production.
And what will happen with it? Once it's deployed to production, what's next?
Well, people hopefully will download it.
Guys, any more questions? Anything else you want to bring up?
No, I just wanted to say that this was pretty good. Good job, guys. With the exception of the feature creep proposal of yours, I'm on board with everything. But even that, you have explained it well in the sense that it's okay to have features if that doesn't go into the face of the well, basically my face, right? Because I just want to use this software to receive and send money, and everything else is friction for me. So if it doesn't go in my face, then it's fine. There will be some questions about like priorities, but I think everyone understands the concept of, hey, we can have features, but not in the face of the default user.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I mean, again, like, to be able to just receive and send Bitcoin privately without having to worry about it, that's where we want to get to. And it's just a bloody difficult process. And to be able at this point in time to offer a complete black box solution where no insight and no control is necessary and desired from the user, I just don't think we're there yet. I think we can be there in the future. But even if we were there, technically speaking, I still would say that this is not the right way for Wasabi Wallet. I think Wasabi Wallet, based on its history, is going to be the flagship Wabi Sabi CK Snacks product. And But I also believe that there will be numerous other software wallets that will speak to our Wabi-Sabi coordinator. And Trezor is one great example. And I think that there will be other even forks of Wasabi where it's the same code base and just a different Fluent project on top with some slightly different UI and UX. I think maybe even we should be working on that. Maybe. I don't think it's priority, and I think other people will take care of it, probably. But at some point, we might even work on something like Wasabito or something, the no fuck up possible, simple as it could be wallet with literally just 2 buttons, receive and send, and nothing else. There isn't even a settings button where you can change anything. It's 2 buttons and that's it. And that's all that this black box wallet gives you. And I think that would be awesome, and a lot of people would use it. But to have this as the goal of Wasabi in the short term or even medium term is, I think, not the way to go. And in the long term, I think this is where we should have a second dedicated wallet that does that. But again, Wasabi is the flagship. It should strive to have that UX by default, yes, but it should have the optional insight and control that is needed to satisfy basically all user types. Because then we have a flagship that everyone can use, and then spin-off projects that are more dedicated to different user groups.
Yeah, and in general, like one thing that I have to point out, since we're talking about this, but like all these grandma mode wallet, for example, with just simple send and receive and all of these things. Honestly, like majority of people, especially the newbies, they are going to use a mobile phone. So like grandma mode, grandma wallet is like optimal when we have a mobile version, and we have a grandma UX. Like grandmas are probably not going to be using a PC to do their Bitcoin transactions anyway. But yeah, just saying, I agree with both of you.
Anyone else got anything?
Well, look, this grandma meme is just that, a meme, right? That's what you aim for with developers, because developers are going to overcomplicate and feature creep stuff. So that's a good aim to have. I don't think that applies to some other places other than development.
By the way, now that you mention it, we should probably get Peter McCormack to try out the wallet and give his review, since it was made kind of like thinking of his knowledge and level.
Mm-hmm. Maybe one other thing to talk about is Norbert's idea of the Wasabi University, and more in general our content production and publishing. And I mean, we're already doing a lot in this regard, not just videos and podcasts, also blog posts and documentation and Twitter and whatnot. So it's quite all right, but we can scale it up, I think, even better. And for one, I think we have to realize that we're already producing a lot of content. We're having a lot of these really good conversations with hours of high quality content that can be recorded and is then available at least for contributors of the project. But then you might as well publish it and make it available for outside people as kind of a funnel for maybe potential future contributors, or just in general, people are interested about the project. And I think then pretty soon, though, we run into the problem of content overload because we have a lot of conversations. So we should figure out a way to, at scale, curate the content and find out the important pieces. And I think there are 2 general aspects to that. For one is to involve the community of listeners, people who are already listening to the stuff should have an easy way to clip out highlights and to mark them as priority. And then the other idea is to, well, use the robots, basically get a transcript of the conversation and get some summarization tool to write a short paragraph about what was happening. Things like this. We can look into automating a lot of these processes so for us, it's just pressing a button and in the background, all of these publishing and editing steps are being taken care of. But it's of course not only about the content that we're already creating, right? We want to, even though that's a lot, we want to also have some dedicated content created specifically for some niche purposes that are kind of outside our general conversations. And here again, the more the better, basically. So let's come up with nice ideas for new content and create it and edit it and publish it. Again, a lot of the tools that we use for our other editing and publishing and stuff is going to be handy here. In general, just let's get people involved. That's also, the interactivity. We always need new contributors to the project, and I think education in general is a nice way to get new people involved. Listeners to the podcast might end up becoming contributors in a small way. Maybe they start out with clipping the podcast, and later they fix typos on the website or whatnot. And eventually they might even do some code or research or whatever. And of course, it also ties in with what I spoke earlier about of your own personal education that I think is always priority. You guys should, if you're interested in more of the stuff, maybe somehow watch the digest of the Wasabi research if we ever have that. And this way you kind of stay up to date with what's going on the research side and things like this. And also your own personal educational path can be used in content production and content editing, especially when it comes with helping others and kind of keeping a diary or summarizing what you've learned. Things like this and teaching what you've learned to others. Things like this is a very great way of learning new things, and I think that can somehow also be integrated. That whenever you're learning something, share that progress with others. I don't know, you find a cool article about Bitcoin somewhere, so read it and organize a short conversation, 30-minute call about the article where you and a couple others talk about it, record that, publish it, clip out the highlights. That's an easy way to scale the work that you're already doing, making that a bit more focused and dedicated, and then milking it to a large extent with just having then a shitload of content that we can share in all the platforms.
Yeah, in general, like being creative, like for example, especially for the new people coming into the company or being like not that familiar with Bitcoin, kind of just, for example, creating videos for like your own personal YouTube channel or whatever, like if you have one or if you want to create one, or just writing a blog or diary or whatever, like, about your kind of like your story, how you ended up in Bitcoin, how Wasabi Wallet and ZK Snack seems to you, how Bitcoin seems to you, why privacy, what have you learned, whatever, like be creative. Also, of course, for for already the people who are familiar with these topics, like, all these kind of things, they can really be helpful for, for you guys personally, but also for like the company and the project in general. And also, if you come like think of a good meme or something, please do create it and post it into the staff channel. We need more laughs and everything. Like, yeah, currently we're kind of like in the middle of a storm. We got the 2.0 out, but we're getting all kind of attacks from here and there. So it's a windy time, but yeah, this is exactly when we measure how strong the crew actually is, when the seas are not calm.
Yeah,
but yeah,
and
we have to try to make
fun is important.
exactly.
So actually, memes are nice, and in general, there's 3 different types of activity or action. There is labor when you produce something that you want to consume later. Then there is leisure, basically, where you consume the stuff that you've previously produced, and then there's play, where you're basically producing something, but it's leisure at the same time. It's in it of itself a recreational, valuable activity, and play is a really powerful concept. And at least for me personally, working on Wasabi was always more pleasure than work, and I always associated it more with playing and creating art, basically. And that type of mindset has helped me a lot with getting a lot of shit done, because it's fun. So yeah, try to reproduce that.
I mean, like, that's the thing. We should try to have like a team spirit, like with the family. Like, you guys, like, we might not necessarily every day love like our family members that much. Like, sometimes a wife might be a bitch, or a kid might be an asshole or something like that. But every day we love them, and that's what we should have also with our job and with our coworkers. We might not every day like the work or the co-workers, but in general we love the project and we love the people in it. We're like we are one of the very few people who actually care about this whole problem of this like Orwellian surveillance society that seems to be like approaching very fast. So yeah, I really tip my hat for all of you guys for working on this project. I really appreciate it, and I hope we can make it even better.
Yep. Yeah, and to make it even better, that's another of those realizations that the closer you zoom into not just the software, but basically anything related to the project, everything is broken, everything's kind of on fire, and everything could be a lot better. And I really mean everything. You just need to zoom in close enough. And this is to tie that into the earlier idea of self-sovereign education and self-directed work. Like, I know that there's a bunch of things broken, and that I also know that you probably know a solution to make them a little bit less broken. And please do that in basically whatever it is. If you feel a pain point, if you see that something isn't as good as it could be, and if you feel that you have a nice solution to make it better, then there shouldn't be anything in your way of improving the situation. If there is something in your way, then that's a problem, and we actually need to talk about it. So bring that up. But basically, the ethos is just fix it and ship it, and convince others in the review process that this is a good solution. And also be open to that review, because you're also just an idiot, and what do you know? So probably even your solution isn't the best, and it could be better. And with the feedback of others, your improvement proposal can get even better, and that will make the software or whatever it is, much better. So don't hesitate to make things better, and also don't be in the way of others making things better. And that includes your own work that you're working on. Right? So, try to be constructive in the feedback and open and clear in the communication.
One thing also that is important to highlight here. So, like, what we're doing, the software that we're building, it's open source. But it's not just the code that we want to keep like open and visible and verifiable for everyone. we wanted to, like in the beginning, to keep everything open for everyone. You know, like all of our users, they can know about all of these calls that we have. For example, dev calls or whatever, like UI calls or any of these, and they can actually join these. We want to keep that open for them. Like, let's try to also keep that in mind in like everything that we do. Of course, like the more we grow, the more there is like complications and everything. But in general, like let's try to keep everything in the open for everyone to see, for everyone to review, and to give feedback on. And yeah, that's a good way to like improve, to at least get a lot of like people, as many people to see all of the stuff as possible.
And one general note again, if there's ever anything that you want to talk about, anything that bothers you, anything that you want to see improved, like don't hesitate to reach out, either chat or call, and we talk about it. Like communication shouldn't be the bottleneck or the failure point. We should try to communicate openly and honestly and with good intentions, I guess. And yeah, trying to figure this out. But coordinating such a by now large group of people is always a mess. But yeah, try to be forthright and help make it a bit less of a mess. And I'll do my best. So I'll be there if there's anything you want to talk about.
Yeah, same here. If anyone wants to have a call about, like in general, about ZK Snack stuff or Wasabi or Bitcoin, yeah, just send me a message and we can book up an hour or something, and we can go over some of the questions you have or something.
Thank you.
Any more questions now?
It was just a comment that thank you for having this opportunity.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you're welcome. Thanks for listening to our blabbering. Yeah, and again, this was kind of an exercise in trying to establish rough consensus. So I guess now is as good a time as any. Are there any strong opposing views? Is anyone totally against anything that we said?
No.
So I think the framing is a bit misleading here in a sense regarding the feature creep. in a sense that it's probably not something that we have too much control over. You know, in a open source software development, it's really hard to tell people what to work on, and very often they have their priorities right even better than the people who would want to tell them what to work on. And I remember after releasing Wasabi 1.0, it was for at least a year or maybe even more when we couldn't decide what to work on. It was not a question what to work on, because there was something very important to work on right then and there. And it took a year for us to like, oh, okay, I guess now things are working that well that we can start like doing feature creeps or doing something even better. So I'm not sure how that will turn out. I think we should look at it rather from this bird eye view. We should look at it case by case basis. Like there are features that people really want, but there are features where a guy creates a GitHub issue and no one else really wants. And I think we should be smart to differentiate, because it's not just that hey, we have feature creep on the UI. That's one thing. But the other thing is that we have the complexity gets worse and worse in the software itself too, because all kinds of things, the software starts to do all kinds of things, and it will have so many paths to that we are not even sure that it's gonna work at all. So that's another compromise there that we didn't talk about. But again, generally, I agree with the idea of having features that people want, that a small percentage of people want, but doesn't interfere with the default money experience, money user experience, right? If you would want to, boil down the 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 target user is in its most simplest form is someone who wants to use its money quickly and cheaply and anonymously, right? That's what they want, and that's it. But yeah, I'm not against of adding more control if it's not in the way of the default workflow.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the core ethos and where the features should lead to is that the default gets easier and better. Right? That's the core idea of the default. And all the features should align with that, basically. But that doesn't mean that there can be other areas of the software where things might seem to contradict a bit, where you do want to have that larger insight, maybe more complexity, more control, potential foot guns, you know. And yes, it's difficult to coordinate and tell people what to work on. And again, even here, we didn't talk about the actual features that we want to have or the prioritization of them. This is more about the general ethos and mindset. I think it's very important that we're all on point here. Like that's the important baseline, and yeah, everything else will just follow from here. Yeah, so let me just ask again, does anyone have any strong oppositions, vetoes?
I would like to hear what Lucas's opinion on all this.
I would like to hear it too.
About the general topic, about one specific topic. In
Which one do
general,
you
I
feel?
think, well, something that I have already shared with many of you in public too and in private too. I think Wasabi should be for everybody, but also it should be leading, let's say, technologically it should be in the edge of the new technology. So, for example, in my case, I would like to have like, for example, a service running as a Windows service or a system daemon, right? Using very, very low CPU, memory, and bandwidth, because basically the only thing that we need, if we are not mixing, is basically downloading from time to time one filter, right? And basically that's all, right? Okay, if the filter matches, we have to download the block too, but basically that's all. A service doesn't need more than that, and separate, for example, the UI, right? Because in order to achieve that vision, that to have the wallet running all the time and be always connected, what would allow us to have, for example, pay to endpoint, we need to have that thing. We cannot have a huge application that use a lot of CPU and have a graphical UI right there. So the idea of yes, but you don't see it, because if you close it, it refuses to close, but goes to background or something like that. It's to me is not good. In fact, if because I'm one of the developers of this product, but if other application does that to me, I will kill it immediately. And I think other people will do it too. So I think we should have Taproot, because Taproot is what will allow us to mix with hardware wallets. I think we should have, output descriptors, because that is what will allow us to have hardware wallet integration and also better interoperability. I think that output descriptor can allow us to migrate from a multi-wallet to a multi-account wallet, right? That will, in a transparent way. So I think that is how I conceive this. And of course, we have to have, if we develop, listen, if we develop Wasabi to have coin joins as we had before, because it's basically very similar, right? You can see 0.1, 0.2, 0.4. I mean, what's the point to have Wasabi if we are not allowing to, or working, or thinking at least, or or considering to have pays in coin joins, right? And other services or other transactions, in a coin join. It makes no sense. I mean, otherwise, we are doing more or less the same that before, but in a much more complicated and complex way, right? So I have many things in my mind, but basically, in general terms, I agree with the guys. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Wasabi is a flagship, and it should be up to date with all the cutting edge Bitcoin stuff. And I think once we do upgrade these things, we can really have a strong foundation for quite advanced, like for quite powerful things in the future. Even as far as opening Lightning channels and coin joins and stuff like this. There's lots of cool possibilities, or even integrating Wasabi into existing wallets and stuff like that. Very powerful. But that whole question of what are the actual features we're talking about, and then the bigger question of how do we prioritize them, that's something out of scope for this call. We'll have to sit together for that someone else.
But for now, let's make the software more stable and reduce the attack surface of stuff, because since 2.2 is out, we have been attacked by hackers constantly, and we have to do stuff now.
Yeah, absolutely. The next couple months are still kind of cleanup mode and refactoring and maintenance, obvious low-hanging fruit improvements, but nothing too reckless. Let's give ourselves some more time to really hone down on the future strategy and prioritization of features before we go into the next big wave of new features. All right, final call. Is there anything else? right, it doesn't seem like it. And then I call this an end to the general's address. Thanks all for joining. I hope this helped to get a bit more clarity on the general vision and mission of the project. And hopefully it kind of sets the scene for the mindset and approach that we'll be taking in the leadership of the company and our continued contributions to the project. Again, don't take this as dictators. This is just our ideas, and at any point, if they're stupid, tell us. But let's not make this any longer than it needs to be. Thanks everyone for joining, and see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye again.